Hello, everybody. We are live for another live stream, or the first live stream in quite a while. Hopefully, all of you are doing well. We have got free practice one coming up in about 10 minutes or so. But we've already got breaking news for you guys before we've even began the stream. I'm going to put it up here for all of you to see. So, long story short, as many of you have probably seen already this weekend, there is a chance, at least a fair chance, of there being rain this weekend, and especially heavy rain on Saturday. On Sunday, there is some chance of rain, but it's not as high, and even if it does rain, it won't be as heavy. So there is kind of a plan B amongst the FIA, amongst F1, that if the rain is too heavy tomorrow, we could see qualifying and race on Sunday. So that's something to keep an eye on. Of course, it will depend on many things, i.e. the weather and how severe it is, and also being able to kind of juggle together the Formula 2 and Formula 3 schedules as well. But let it be known that in case things really kind of go out of control, F1 has got a plan B, which is going to be really interesting. Thanks to all of you who are here. Armo, Christopher, great to see you guys in chat. Hopefully you're doing well. And yeah, we're going to be underway for qualifying, not qualifying yet, for FP1 soon. So in chat, let me know your predictions, what your thoughts are as we get ready for the session. And yeah, Ahmed, that's the main thing here. F1 wants to avoid a repeat of what we saw in Spa, which is that, we had no action. So if things get out of hand tomorrow and there's too much rain and we can't race, then we're going to be seeing, most likely, F1 having, or potentially having qualifying on Sunday as well with the race, just because from a kind of practical standpoint, if you can't have it on Saturday, then having it on Sunday is a possibility. If you go back to, I think, Japan 2019, I think it was either rain or some other reason, but we had qualifying and race on Sunday, so it can happen. It has happened, and hopefully we'll see it. I mean, the main hope is that on Saturday we have normal qualifying, but if we don't, fingers crossed, we can see things going smoothly from there. So we'll see what happens in that regard. But thanks to all of you who are watching. Everyone starts in 10 minutes. And also, speaking of the rain, a big thing as well is that because of the nature of the circuit in Sochi, it's very flat. And because it's very flat, if it does rain, unlike in Spa where it can dry very quickly, in Sochi it kind of just stays the same because it's a very flat, smooth surface with very little kind of undulations or elevation changes. So if it does rain heavily, then it could stay like that for a while at least. I mean, all of you, I'm sure, saw on Friday and Thursday the images, not on Friday, but yesterday, the images of the tracks being flooded. So yeah, a lot of drama already. And for those of you who are just joining, I'll put it up on screen one final time before we get ready for FP1, which is that in case it rains too heavily on Saturday, we're going to be seeing most likely qualifying on Sunday as well. I mean, I say most likely, it will depend on the rain, but we have seen in the past that if the rain is too heavy on Saturday, we have had qualifying and race on Sunday. I think it was Japan 2019. So not too long ago, really, we had both quali and race on Sunday. So it can happen in F1. So yeah, just be aware of that. But the good news is that it's dry today. So we're going to have a lot of FP1 and 2 running, and also Formula 3 qualifying, Formula 2 qualifying. I'll be doing streams for all of those. So yeah, hopefully all of you stick around and enjoy the content. But in chat, guys, feel free to leave your predictions, your thoughts as we get ready for clasificación, also for free practice. A hipster, that's actually true. I just kind of automatically put him there. But actually, speaking of Verstappen, a big kind of debate is if he'll take a penalty or not, if he's going to be kind of taking the engine change now at Russia, if he'll leave it for a later date. And my thinking has always been this, that even though on paper Sochi isn't the worst track to overtake, it will depend on qualifying. Red Bull have said that they're going to wait until qualifying just to see how severe kind of where Max is, what the pace is like, and then they'll see, okay, what's the best possible course of action here. So I think that'll be kind of the main kind of deciding factor for what we see in that regard. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see how that happens, but it also means that this should really be, it is a golden chance for Mercedes. It's a track where they've always done well in the past. Even in 1914, they were winning races here. it's a track that suits them, and Max has a penalty. So even if Max qualifies first, he'll start fourth at very, very best. And you'd expect Lewis and Valtteri to be 1 and 2, kind of aside from Max. So it should be a good chance to get points and to kind of extend their lead in the constructors. So a very big chance for Mercedes that they should be looking to take. That they really should be looking to take for sure. So yeah. Let's see what happens. But first, we've been talking a lot about the rain and practice, and qualifying and race. But today's practice and of course qualifying for the lower formulas. So just see how how those go, and we'll see how the teams can adapt and collect that data. I always find it fun to look at last year and see which teams were stronger and weaker. McLaren historically aren't that strong at Sochi, at least compared to, for example, Monza. So I think it will be a track where they might struggle a bit more potentially, compared to Ferrari, who, even though it's not necessarily a Ferrari track, they should be a lot closer than they were in Monza. And also, with Leclerc's penalty, engine change and penalty, I'm intrigued to see how that engine change will impact him. I'm intrigued to see how fast that engine is, because the expectation is, or the estimates are that, it can give an extra 10-15 horsepower, possibly. So if that's true, then there'll be a massive boost for Ferrari. So, yeah, and also, a big thing is that I'm just reading more news about. Okay, so here's some more news about the Leclerc power unit, a kind of debacle, which is basically that he'll be having a new engine, but it won't be at full power. So I'll just show you guys very quickly on my screen here. So even though they're bringing in Leclerc's new power unit, they're not going to be maximizing the power, because simply put, we've got, this is round 14 or so. We've still got 8 more rounds of the season. We're only about 2/3 of the way through. So for an engine to do 8 rounds or 9 rounds, however many it is left, it's a lot. So Ferrari are going to be, I think, conservative at this round. Even then, the increase of 8 horsepower is still significant. It's still an important and a big step for them as a team. But the potential 10-15 horsepower, I think, won't be until later on. And especially if it rains, having the extra engine power won't be as big of an advantage. So we're about kind of managing that kind of engine dilemma for Ferrari from now till the end of the year. And I'm intrigued to see how that develops. Rachel, hey, great to see you in chat. Let me just try and get your chats up so I can read them properly, because I can't really see. Okay. Johnson, no, it's starting in 5 minutes. It's starting in 5 minutes. Unless I've missed practice, which I'd be very sad about, but I don't think that practice has begun. It starts in 5 minutes, John. So no worries there. Hipster, yeah, I think, look, that's true, but my point is that it's not as strong for them, Of course, last year, Sainz accidentally took out himself and Norris, basically, on lap 1. But we'll see. I might have to get rid of that poll, because most of you put in Verstappen, even though you technically can't get a poll with this penalty. So I have to probably try and get rid of that. But practice starts soon. Very, very hyped for that. And yeah, fingers crossed we can have a fun, interesting session. And of course, with the risk of rain throughout the weekend, whilst it's dry, it's going to be important for teams to kind of get the most data possible, whilst there's actual on-track running. So let's see how things transpire. As my Instagram glitches, hopefully that's nothing too serious. No, okay, my Instagram's back. Right, guys, thank you so much for watching so far, all 9 of you. I'm going to be just giving commentary throughout the session. Hopefully you guys enjoy that. And of course, I'll be doing watch-alongs for F2 qualifying, F3 qualifying, and then of course, because I'm now at university on my own, I can do qualifying and race watch-alongs, which will be very fun. Because whilst these are good, I think hearing my reactions for races and qualifying would be more interesting. So hopefully all of you enjoy that, and you will hit those kind of notifications for all those streams. 1,000, yes we are. We're almost there. Just 4 minutes to go. And it's weird because given that we so often have back-to-back races or triple headers, not having F1 for 2 weeks kind of feels like a longish period. So I'm just kind of hyped to see the cars back out on track. And with all of the uncertainty, I'm intrigued to see, what happens in this no doubt hectic FP1 FP1 session. So let's see. Let's see. Of course, Valtteri has normally been very strong at this track, very strong. He's won here twice, and even in 2018 when he didn't win, of course, he had the Valtteri it's James moment where he had to let Lewis pass. So he's always been quick around here. I think Valtteri's two kind of strong tracks have always been Austria and Sochi. I still think that Lewis will be able to, pull out a result, and with the championship at stake, even if Valtteri's ahead, they might just, tell him to let Lewis by. But what I stress is that if it rains, I think that Lewis will easily have the handle over Valtteri. But also, an advantage for Mercedes is that even if Max doesn't take his penalty, he has a very old engine. So even if they don't change it, it'll be on lower power. It won't be as fresh as, say, a newer engine from other teams. So basically, every indication, every kind of possible metric suggests that it should be a strong weekend, or at least a good chance for Mercedes to kind of, pounce and maximize the options available to them, really. But we are only 2 minutes away from FP1 beginning. If you're new, guys, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell because we are very lucky this weekend. We have F1 and F2 and F3 all in one weekend, which is hectic but also fun. So I'll be live pretty much all day at this rate for all of the different sessions. Danish FKD. I'm not even sure how to respond to that personally, mate. I really don't know. Hipster. Yeah, I mean, look, Valtteri isn't a bad driver, but in the wet, he struggles massively. So if it rains, Max Lewis, of course, would beat him. I mean, as we saw in Spa, if it rains, I'd expect Valtteri to struggle quite a bit. Of course, he's not terrible. Like, he can drive in the wet, but he's not, say, as good as his rivals, which is really the main thing. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see if he can maybe turn that around, because if you go, for example, to Germany 2019, he had okay pace in the wet before he spun. So I think that if he just keeps on track, he's not terrible in the wet. But the thing is, he's had crashes, he's had spins, Turkey last year, Imola this year, even though you could argue it wasn't his fault that he crashed out, he was ridiculously slow. So Valtteri isn't the strongest in the wet, but we'll reserve judgment and see how he goes. We'll see how he goes. As we're going to get underway for FP1. By the way, guys, quick disclaimer. My feed might be, say, 20 seconds slower, which will be a bit annoying because I can't read all your comments live, but at the same time, I'll be able to, or at least you'll be able to kind of see my reactions after things happen, which will be quite funny, perhaps, for some of you watching. But yeah, FP1 is beginning now, so let me get my headphones on. It is indeed dry in Sochi, which is very good. Let me see if I can actually get my interesting. Okay. Prince Ali. Right. Dun. Right, okay. F1 underway then. We've got the first few cars on track, Sainz, Ocon, Leclerc. So as we've been saying really the whole time, they want to get out on track and get that data ASAP. Because, I mean, whilst it's dry, they have to take advantage and kind of maximize the conditions whilst they're still kind of going to be useful for the weekend as a whole. And there you go, as Crofty is saying in commentary, the biggest elevation change is about 2 meters in the whole track. So basically, if it rains, it will stay wet for a fairly long time, at least more than most tracks. But it's really hectic out there. Already about, 15 cars out on track already? And of course, Kimi is back. Kimi, of course, contracting COVID. He had no symptoms, but he still had to kind of step out and self-isolate. We had, of course, Robert Kubica fill in, and I think reasonably well for him, but he's back now. And given Giovinazzi's pace in qualifying in Zandvoort, and really in the race as well before his kind of mishaps in Zandvoort and in Monza, I'm curious to see how strong Kimi's going to be, in particular in race trim. So we'll see, guys, how that develops. We'll see how that develops. You can see the new Mercedes sponsors there, FTX. I think Bitcoin or crypto sponsors for Mercedes. Size of the Mercedes making moves, getting new sponsors, always staying on top of their game. As we're now looking at Nikita Mazepin himself, our only home driver now at Russia with Kvyat gone, unfortunately. So let's see how he does in his home Grand Prix. Danish, delay is just my stream, basically. That's pretty much it. It's nothing too radical. Nikita's helmet, I must say, looks very good. The white complements the car quite well. Far better than the kind of very strong orange that he normally has. Whoa. Yeah, Danish, like, it's calm. Like, it's not a massive thing, just a small little inconvenience. But nothing too severe. As I've got to quickly edit my chat box, I've just noticed. It's way too high over there. Interesting chat there from Danish about Perez being under pressure. I mean, I would say that's a good point, mate. I think he is in some regards. I think, of course, his seat is safe, so in that regard, he's not under too much pressure. But I get your point. Red Bull need him massively if they want to be challenging Mercedes for the constructors. They need Perez to improve, in particular in qualifying, because his race pace is decent, but his qualifying pace is really so far off. But I think a big issue also is that his race pace sometimes looks better than it is, because say he starts P20, like in Zandvoort, and he ends up in P7, but compared to say Valtteri or Lewis, he may not even be on their pace. So look, Checo's obviously a great driver, but I think it's clear to see that the second Red Bull seat is still not the best for a driver trying to adapt to a new team. Looking now at George Russell. Russell, of course, in a very good place. He's going to Mercedes next year, which will most likely be an upgrade on Williams, unless something amazing happens at Williams next season. He scored points, of course, in Spa, the podium, points in Hungary, and points again in Italy. So, from kind of searching for points desperately just a few months ago, really, Ross and Williams are now on a really good kind of streak of scoring points in 3 out of the last 4 race weekends. So, big progress there for Williams, which you have to be kind of happy and respect them for their progress. And even though really Alfa may have got faster car than Williams, with all the points that Williams have, they're probably guaranteed P8 in the constructors. Williams have gotten over 20 points, Alfa Romeo have 3. I can't see Alfa scoring 20 more points over the year, let alone 20 more, without Alfa 20 more compared to Williams. So, yeah. We'll see if Kimi and Giovinazzi can weave some magic over the next 8 rounds. But I don't think that they're going to be able to kind of overhaul such a big points gap. Also goes P13. I might have to actually pull up some live timings here so that I can see them a bit more clearly, and just observe these sector times, because even though it's good to watch the kind of live TV feed, I personally enjoy just looking at the these sector times and looking at the actual times, because even though it's great seeing the cars on track, you get the best data from just looking at the timing screens, trying to analyze the long run pace. As Leclerc goes fastest, that's an interesting lap, a 1:36.7. I believe that pole last year in the dry, of course, was a 1 minute 31.3. So these are, of course, long runs, as you'd expect for the start of the session. So we'll see how much the times tumble throughout the hour, really. Hamilton goes fastest then with a 1 minute. Oh, actually, no, that's old. It's still Leclerc quickest. Lando now going across the line on the medium compound tyre. Still very early days, really too early to kind of analyse anything. Max still yet to go out on track or even set a lap. I presume they'll be saving their engine as much as possible this weekend, because it'll probably be either they'll change it for this weekend or it'll be one of their last weekends with their old engine. So, without doubt, it's going to be about kind of minimizing unnecessary on-track kind of wear for the engine, I'm sure. Vettel with a good lap. Ocon up in 4th with a 1:37.5 on the hard tyre. That's an interesting lap time. Of course, the Alpines last year with Ocon and Ricciardo were very strong. I think Ocon and Ricciardo were P4 and P5 for most of last year's race. And if I recall correctly, they got very good points in the end. I think that Ricciardo in the end had more pace than Ocon. Actually, I think that they told Ocon to let Ricciardo pass. But Alpine, or I should say Renault, had good pace last year. So Alpine should be a bit stronger than they were in Monza, where really Alonso got points in P8, but the car wasn't very strong compared to other midfield cars. So we'll see if Alpine are a bit stronger this weekend than they were, say, at Monza. Let's see if Leclerc can improve then on his soft compound tyre. So he's just 300ths off, so interesting to see lap time staying the same. I presume that's still obviously long run pace because it's in the 137s, sorry, what with the 136s. But we'll see if for qualifying, whether it's tomorrow or on Sunday, if they're able to set 2 laps in a row on those tyres, or if it's 1 lap and they're done, they have to set a lap on fresh tyres. As Alonso goes P8, with Ocon in P4, and Valtteri's now purple by 7/10 in the middle sector on those hard compound tyres. A bit too much curb there. Valtteri, of course, with his new contract for next year at Alfa Romeo, I think they'll be a bit more relaxed now. He kind of knows where his future is. I think he can just kind of enjoy his final few months at Mercedes. And Valtteri does go fastest on those hard compound tyres. Leclerc's lap was on the softs. Leclerc reporting something strange on team radio, and they've asked him to box. Shabir, great to see you. 45 minutes still. So I'm curious to see what happens there with Leclerc. So let's see if Leclerc's got an actual issue, or at least a severe issue, if it's just something relatively minor. But with that new engine, hearing the phrase that there's something strange, it's not really a great sign for Ferrari. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes for Ferrari, but I'll be honest, it's not a very encouraging sign if Leclerc is reporting something strange after just 15 minutes. It could be a small thing, but when they're experimenting with a new engine and then they're, just testing their concept for next year's power unit, that kind of thing is never what you want to hear as a driver. Or as develops, he's now in the pits, so they'll have a look, and hopefully he's back out on track later on in the session. Verstappen now finally out on track. He was in the pits for the first 15 minutes or so it's good to see him now back out, or out for the first time. He's on the soft compound tyre, clearly doing some high fuel running, as Ricciardo goes P9 for McLaren, who of course are on a very, who are on a high after their 1-2 finish at Monza, their first since 2010 China? No, not China, Canada. Turkey, in fact, if I can remember correctly. So Max goes P4. Interestingly, he gained a lot of time in that final sector, even though in this first few he was quite a long way off. So I wouldn't be surprised if that final sector suits the Red Bull quite well, with those tight, twisty corners. Let's have a look at Leclerc's garage now. They are giving that a very in-depth inspection because of course he's got that new engine, which is supposed to be kind of giving Ferrari some data for next season, as Alonso goes P7 for Alpine with a 137 flat exactly. Oh, drop my watch. Ocon goes P5, so presumably the Alpines are running similar kind of fuel loads because they're within a few tenths of each other. And Alonso's got a very good record at Russia. In 2014, he had a very good finish in a really bad Ferrari. And in 2016, I think he finished P6 in the McLaren Honda. So Alonso's got a very good record here, as does really Ocon. So I'm curious to see which of those two will will come out on top this weekend. Of course, I back Alonso. I think that the race pace, Alonso's got it in the bag, but qualifying, Alonso isn't quite there. So we'll see how things kind of evolve. As Lando goes P3 with a 136.989. We're now looking at Raikkonen, who's P15 currently, though improving on those hards. The issue for Alfa Romeo is that you'd think even though they've not got a terrible car, you question if they'll be as fast as they were in Monza or as they were in Zandvoort. So hopefully they can try and replicate or come close to their pace from earlier in the season, because also in the last 2 rounds, because for their sake, if they can't kind of, rediscover that pace, they'll be in trouble. Shabe, it's close. I think it's going to be a stronger track for Ferrari than Monza was. But with, Leclerc starting at the back, it's advantage McLaren. But with that said, I think that Ferrari will still be quite strong here. Because even in tracks like Silverstone, Ferrari have shown good pace. So as Monaco with all of their straights didn't suit their car, I think that Sochi could suit them. And Verstappen is now reporting issues with his recharge. Of course, he's got a very old engine, so again, this comes back to the question, are they going to be, having to get a new engine from this weekend? Because it's a very old engine. It's been there for a while, so we're going to see if things can be controlled, but I'm not 100% confident there. Verstappen, though, is improving, so let's see if it was maybe just a small little niggle. It's probably not really a massive issue. As Max goes purple middle sector, so he's pushing on those soft tires. You can see the graining on the inside of the tire there, as the Alpha gets out of the way. So he was 2/10 down in the middle sector, but in the final sector he gained 5/10, half a second. So really, that final sector looks as though it's going to be the strong point for Red Bull, as you really expect, given its kind of twisty nature. But then again, the Honda power unit has been very powerful. Shabe, possibly. I think that the Verstappen penalty makes life easier for Mercedes for sure, but I still wouldn't write off Red Bull. They've been strong at every track this year, realistically. So we'll see what happens in that regard. We'll see what happens. But I think that Merc have to take advantage. I mean, with that, even if Max doesn't take the engine penalty, he has that 3-place good job, which will put him 4th at best. So either way, it's time for Merc to kind of step up. They've made quite a few mistakes this year already, whether it's at Hungary or with that pulpit stop as well at Italy. So they've got to kind of iron out those mistakes if they want to really compete with Red Bull and guarantee that world championship. Oh, I think that was my timer incorrect for free practice 1. Oh no, it worked. Okay. I'm just trying to find the sector times. Let me just go to the F1 website. F1 live timings. Okay, I've got the timings up on my screen now, so I can have a look at them. So the Alpines P6 and 7, but they do have a habit of being strong in practice and then in qualifying slightly fading away. This track should be stronger for Alpine, so maybe there's reason to be optimistic on that front. Lando P5, Leclerc P4, Seb P8. Really, it's too early to really have any kind of in-depth look at these times because it's just too early. It's only been 20 minutes of running. But we'll see, I think, over FP1 and then FP2 later on how they go. The Haas cars looking very slow as per usual. 9/10 off the Williams, so hopefully Haas aren't that slow on Sunday and Saturday, but we'll see how they can go. Gasly goes off, and that's the thing. The runoff for turn. Actually, I have something that we can maybe talk about. The exit out of turn 2 is going to be a nightmare this weekend. I can just envision and see already. There'll be a lot of incidents there in terms of track extending and just messing up your lap out of turn 1. So that'll be, I think, something to keep an eye on. And also, something that I was doing on my own yesterday. I was watching last year's race back. And realistically, the best corner or the best line for turn 1, lap 1, is the inside line. Purely because if you're on the outside, most likely, you're going to be forced off track. And if you're forced off track and you kind of cut the curb, you have to give the place back. So most drivers on the outside ended up going like through the runoff area. So I think if you can stay on the inside and avoid the carnage on the outside, then that'll be the key for this weekend. So I'm curious to see what the drivers do, but I think that the inside line for turn 1 and turn 2 is the best line to take for this weekend. Because on the outside of turn 2, you can't really, go around the outside there on lap 1 because there's just very little space. There's very little space. Right, so Max on another lap here on the softs. Let's see if he's going to make any improvements. It's interesting because normally the teams don't go on the softs early on. But Verstappen is, and so is Leclerc, I think, earlier. And I've got Valtteri on the soft, so interesting to see the different teams and their strategies. As Max is already a 10th up in Sector 1 on his own best time. But Valtteri is 7/10 up in the first sector, so that must be a qualifying one for Valtteri. We'll see what his final lap time is, but 7/10 up in Sector 1, that is surely kind of, very low fuel or lower fuel at least. Let's see his final and middle sector if he improves or not. But Sector 1 is really just 2 actual braking points. So let's see what he does there, but he's gone very quick. Sector 2 is the second up as well, so this will be maybe at 134 for Valtteri. As Max goes faster himself with 135.6. But it's Mr. Bottas who's really flying at the moment. Of course, we can't know the fuel loads necessarily, but this must be a pretty low, or at least a lower fuel load for Bottas. Let's see his final lap. It's 134.5 for Valtteri, so a very quick lap. 1.1 second clear of everybody else. We're gonna, I think, see more drivers and teams now come out on the soft compound tire. I can't see only the Mercedes and Red Bull cars going out on the softs. I think that we'll see more kind of soft running, which would be good to try and compare at least the different drivers and teams. Leclerc is back out, so I don't think he's got any major issue, which is good. So it's relatively quiet on track currently. Only about half of the drivers out there setting laps. Let's compare Hamilton's lap to Valtteri's. About a tenth off so far in the first and the second sectors. As Leclerc is behind, let's see where his sector is. About 4 tenths off. Now, because these sectors are similar-ish, I'm presuming that they're running similar fuel loads. Because for Leclerc to be 4 tenths off Lewis in the middle sector, that seems reasonable enough. That seems reasonable. So Lewis goes second with a 134.6, about 2 tenths behind Bottas. Let's see what Leclerc's time is. A 135.1. So only 6 tenths off Valtteri, not too bad at all for Ferrari. Of course, we don't know the engine modes for sure, but you'd assume that they're running a slightly higher, so that they're in similar fuel loads for sure. Let's see what Lando does here then on the mediums, as we've got the Alpines out on track. Gasly goes P5 with a 1:36. Seb has just left the garage, so we're going to be seeing more laps here. Let's see what they look like, what these sectors are like. So first sector Lando is down, a second off fastest. Let's see if he improves in the middle sector. He does, actually in the middle sector, I'm seeing here on my timings. So let's see where this lap puts him. So in the middle sector he loses about 6 tenths. A bit of traffic, but they will get out of the way very nicely. As Seb sets a 35.0 first sector, so let's compare those to the rest of the field here. Lando with a lot of traffic here, so you can see the track is getting a lot more busy now. Tsunoda with a 35.7 first sector, so about 7 tenths off Seb. Which, I mean, I presume that they're in different fuel loads, because that is way off for Tsunoda. Ocon 35.2 first sector. We'll see what Alonso does. Because really the Alonso Ocon Vettel, that's the kind of fight for P5, along with Pierre Gasly in the constructors. So we'll see what else happens there. So Seb's middle sector a 32.5, Tsunoda's a 33.4. As Seb sets a 135.7, putting him P5. So pretty good lap there for Seb. Ocon's lap is about 7 tenths off so far, so he might be about a second off. So he may just go P6, P7, depending on his final sector here, Esteban. But we'll see where he goes. So Ocon does go P6, just behind, well, 4 tenths or so off Seb. So actually, Ocon gained 3 tenths on Vettel in the final sector. So maybe a setup change is due for Alpine, because Ocon in the middle sector loses 6 tenths but gains 3 in the last. So that may have been a mistake, but maybe just some tweaking there to be done. Russell with a PB first sector 35.2. So this could be a decent lap for George. It could put him in the top 12 or so, at least a few places up. Latifi goes P15, signs up into P6, so that's an improvement for Carlos. He's about 300ths behind Seb, actually exactly 300ths behind Seb. Shabit, in terms of the constructors, well, I'm supporting Alonso as always. I don't really support teams necessarily, and I've only really been an Alonso fan, so he's my one and only guy that I support really. Kimi is setting some improved sector times here, 33 flat middle sector. As Perez and Ricardo are both improving in their first sectors as well. So we'll see how they're able to kind of improve. As Kimi goes P11 with a 137.1. Perez's sector times look okay, but not spectacular. He may go P8 here, but it's not looking as though he's setting the timing screens alight necessarily. Though in fairness, the final sector is where Red Bull seem to be strongest. Ricardo's sector times are actually very close to Checo's. As Checo does go P7, a 36.1, 1.7 off Valtteri and about half a second off his teammate. Let's see where Ricardo puts his McLaren then on the timing sheets. As Lance is setting pretty good sectors as well. He's currently P17, but we'll see if Stroll can improve. So Ricardo goes P9, and again, Perez gained about 8 tenths on Ricardo in the final sector. Now that's possibly a mistake, but again, the recurring theme is that the strongest sector for Red Bull seems to be the last sector. As Stroll is now up into P9 with a very solid lap. So the Astons both in the top 10. That's good news for the UK based team. As there's been a VSC deployed. Let's see why the VSC's been deployed. Thanks to all of you who are currently watching. Ardit, mate, great to see you. Hopefully you're doing well. Yeah, I'm good. Just trying to get back into like, my kind of streaming rhythm, and I'll be live pretty much all day today. So that will be very fun to see, because we've got Formula 2, Formula 3. So lots of action, and looks as though the safety car was just for debris. So no big issue, just a quick VSC, but it's going to be gone soon. Actually, now it is gone. So I think just a bit of debris on the track that they were trying to clear. So nothing really too serious at all. And the FIA do confirm that Leclerc will start from the back. Shite. Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's really hard to kind of analyze, especially just from kind of the live feed, the different fuel loads and stuff and such. But as you say, the Honda engine isn't bad as you've seen this year. So it does seem as though Red Bull, given that they're over a second off the Mercs, are running either lower engine modes, lower fuel modes, but probably a bit of both. So yeah, Red Bull of course have got far more to give, and even though we debate is this a Merc track, is a Red Bull track, ultimately they're so close that will come down to the driver, strategy, those kinds of things to make up the difference, and not just if it's a Merc or Red Bull track. So yeah, Verstappen is quite a way off, but that'll be down to engine modes for sure. And again, the final sectors of Verstappen are very encouraging to me. I mean, if you're able to go that quickly in the final sector, then that's a good sign that your car is very well hooked up in those twisty parts of the track. Siddharth, you think that he can land pole? I mean, I think that Russell getting pole is kind of optimistic, I'm not gonna lie. I can't be bothered. Here's the thing. So I just tweeted and I made a typo, but tweeting and streaming at the same time, it's so easy to make mistakes. It's so easy to kind of make typos. But yeah, Siddharth, I think that Valtteri will, so that Russell will qualify well if it does rain, and if we have a qualifying in the wet and not on Sunday. But I can't see him getting pole, to be quite honest. But you never know in F1, things can happen. Ardit, that's the thing. In Belgium, Shaw was very unlucky. If you recall, they let him out very late. Him and Alonso were basically fighting for on-track position. Alonso got across the line with like 2 seconds to go, and Shaw didn't get across the line at all. So Shaw was unlucky to not be able to do a second lap, because I think before that, in the kind of first runs, he was pretty quick. So a Stroll pole is a long shot, but if it rains, I expect Lance to do well. And the Aston Martin does seem to have pretty decent pace in the wet. Because, for example, the Alpines struggled, but the Astons look pretty good. So I expect Lance to be up there if it does indeed rain, which it probably will. But the question is, because it's expected to be ridiculously heavy rain on Saturday, the hypothesis is that we'll skip Saturday for qualifying, at least for the F1, and we'll race on Sunday. And there could be qualifying on Sunday in addition to the race. But then with Formula 2 and Formula 3, the question is, how do you combine F2 and F3 when you're going to have qualifying for F1 on Sunday as well? So it could be a very hectic kind of couple of weeks, or sorry, a couple of hours for the FIA, and for us as fans as well. But we'll see. We'll see. But thanks to all of you who are watching, especially you, Ardit in chat, Siddharth, great to see all of you guys here. As Lando goes a bit wide there, collecting some debris. Looks as though he's just gone a bit off. So let's see if we get any replays on that. Yeah, I mean, the good thing about Sochi is that it's got no kind of Eau Rouge-esque corner. But the issue with Sochi is that it's a very flat track. Unlike in, for example, even though in Spa it rained very heavily, when it stopped raining, the track dried out very quickly, as we saw in certain parts of practice and qualifying. But because of how kind of flat Sochi is, that's not really possible. Because if it rains, I mean, it'll eventually go, but it will drain a lot slower than in Sochi. Sorry, than in Spa. So even though it's not got a kind of as precarious a corner as Eau Rouge per se, it's still going to be kind of difficult to judge how they kind of get the racing done at Sochi. If it does rain. And of course, it depends on how heavy it is. The issue is not the rain; it's that it's heavy rain forecast for Saturday. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe we should be a bit more optimistic and not be kind of too down on the weather. But I wouldn't be surprised if we have some issues this weekend due to the rain. Right, so Verstappen on the softs again. Let's see if this is another push lap. I'm interested by seeing all these soft runs from Red Bull. Possibly they're banking on the rain tomorrow, so they're just trying to maximize their data today. But they have done quite a few runs, it must be said, on those softs. So let's see if he's gonna improve, if he's pushing or not. It does look as though it's a push lap, but we'll see how much fuel he's got, etc., etc. And you can tell that, yep, so he's only 2 tenths down in the first sector, which is a big improvement for him. And of course, it's the final sector and the middle sector where Red Bull seem to be a bit stronger. So let's see how he gains so far. Keeping it nicely on track there, within track limits, which is not easy with the middle sector in Sochi. He'll get a bit of slipstream perhaps from Gasly, who actually gets out of the way very quickly. So into sector 2, he was purple, gaining about half a tenth on Valtteri. So let's see down this final sector how much he gains. Because given the difference in time so far, they must have similar enough fuel loads. At least you'd imagine, given how close they are. So see how much he gains or loses in this final sector, which is more corner than straight. So let's see. And he goes across the line, and he actually loses about half a tenth again. So there could be a mistake, but as I said, those laps are very similar to the Mercedes, which indicates that they're running similar fuel loads. Yep, so Max, yeah, I think that we all want to, it's funny because nowadays F1 fans, or at least some, seem afraid of the rain, almost. I still want it to rain, if possible, because it makes the racing so much more entertaining. Even though, frankly, I think this year we've had so many great Grand Prix in the dry as well. So we'll see what happens. But yes, I think that the main aim is just to avoid a repeat of Spa 2021. Because that was very embarrassing. And also very depressing for most F1 fans who'd waited, well, a month basically for the F1 to come back. And what we saw was basically no actual racing, which is a big shame. When I'm looking at Fernando Alonso in the Alpine, he's over a second off Ocon, about a second off Ocon, so I don't think he's set a push lap on those softs. I'm intrigued to see how quickly he goes. Of course, Alonso's point streak was cut abruptly short and frankly unfairly at Spa because there was no actual race. But we'll see if he can continue his pretty amazing form since Baku, really, at Sochi. As I mentioned earlier on, he's got a very good record here, having scored good points in pretty terrible cars in the past. And it looks like we're going to be following him for a hot lap here, so let's see how he goes. You can see the preparation there, getting that ERS fully charged, and he'll now go for his push lap. So let's see what Fernando can do here. Currently P15. Very heavy turn on braking zone. So about 7 tenths down in sector 1. Let's see how the rest of the lap goes. He's hitting one of his apexes, but I mean, Anthony Davidson seems to think it's a terrible lap because he's critiqued every single turn. But let's see the middle sector. So he loses about half a second in the middle sector. So let's see the final sector here. You can see Alonso still fighting with the car slightly. Clearly not quite there. Though that was a slightly better section there. Hitting the apex in 1 and 2. So not the best lap ever. He goes just behind Esteban in P11. Losing about half a second per sector pretty much. But still definitely room to improve the that setup for sure. Afam, no, it's not raining currently. Currently it's not raining. But it's expected to rain tomorrow very heavily, and it's expected to rain very heavily. Well, not heavily, but there'll be some rain on Sunday, but the main kind of heavy rain is expected to be on Saturday. So we'll see. Weather forecasts aren't always accurate, but based on the heavy rain that we saw, of course, in based on the heavy rain that we saw in, if I can remember correctly, on Thursday, where the paddock was flooded pretty much, I think that if the forecast says heavy rain, we'll at least see some rain tomorrow. So it's dry today, and the teams will be collecting as much info as they can, but it's going to be dry tomorrow, so it's going to be wet tomorrow most likely. Let's see if this is a push lap for Yuki. It looks like one just visually, based on how much he's kind of hustling and fighting with the car. But let's see. I know he's starting the lap, okay. So that was interesting. He seemed relatively aggressive. And he hasn't turned on DRS, so I think this is a long run pace for Yuki. But let's just see. Yes, so Yuki quite a long way in sector 1, about over 2 seconds, so this is definitely long run pace for Yuki. I was thinking that he seemed like he was pushing, and he was, but the lap time wasn't there because he's on long run pace. I mean, losing 2.5 seconds in sector 1, that's going to be because of fuel. It's not going to be because of anything else. So Perez also 2.5 seconds off in sector 1, so a similar first sector to Yuki. Again, they're both doing long run pace. I'm curious to see how many laps they've both been on those tyres, because they're both on softs, and they both set very similar first sectors. So we'll see what happens there with those two, as Alonso goes ahead of Ocon by a few thousandths, so nothing really substantial there. are still worth noting. So yeah, another 4.6 down in the middle sector. So not so far it's no on pace for Chico Perez. So this lap time is going to be 1 minute 42, I believe, for Perez. No, 141.433. So after this, I'll analyze some of the long run pace, some of the data in that regard, and see how it's looking. Thanks to all of you who are watching so far. I appreciate all of you massively. I'll be doing a stream for F3 qualifying in like half an hour, and then for F2 qualifying and FP2. So do stay tuned for all of that. But yeah. Crofty is suggesting here that Ricciardo couldn't handle that Red Bull, but realistically, his biggest issue in his 2018 was reliability, not handling with the car. So a bit of a reach there from Crofty, but there you go, I guess. See, it depends. Helmut Marko has said that they're going to basically wait until qualifying. That they'll see where he qualifies and then decide. If I were to guess, I would say that they're going to actually make the change just because of the rain. It means that if he starts from last, he's got a better chance really of getting up the grid. But we'll see what happens. I think it'll depend on where he qualifies. If he has a bad qualifying, then they'll for sure take it. Because, of course, say he qualifies P3, and he also have that 3-place grid penalty from Monza, he'll lose quite a bit of he'll be starting from fairly far back, given that he is in a Red Bull. So it will all depend, but I would suggest that they're going to make the change this weekend. because the longer that they leave it to make the change, the bigger the risk is. And whilst overtaking isn't actually, I'll check. What round is after Sochi? Let's check. After Sochi is Turkey, so you can overtake there, and America you can also overtake at Kota, and even in Mexico you can overtake with the long straight. So, I mean, really, they could wait, but I think they don't want to wait too long because with each race, the chance of an engine blowout increases for Red Bull and Max. So, it's going to be, as always in F1, about finding that balance between trying to maximize performance, but also keep that reliability in a good place. Right, so according to the team radio from Perez, it seems as though the race pace of the Mercs is similar to the Red Bulls. So again, as with pretty much not every track, but with several Grand Prix this year, it's very close, and I know it'll be down to fine margins, drivers, having better race pace, putting in a better qualifying lap, race start, strategy, mistakes, those kinds of things. Giovinazzi locks up as we wait for the replay, which came quite late there. Yep, so that's just that. So those hards aren't going to be in use much longer, I don't think, with that flat spot. So that is the session over. We've got a few drivers coming across the line now. Valtteri is still doing some running on those hards, but we've now got most cars coming into the pits now, or just finishing their final runs. Conclusions from today. I think what we would expected. The Mercs looking strong, Verstappen in the mix, and I think it'll be again between like the Mercs and Verstappen this weekend. Perez again looking off the pace, struggling pretty significantly. So we'll see. We'll see. And thank you so much for watching. I'll be live in like 20 minutes for the F3 qualifying, so do join me for that.